Coming up on the show, cracking WPA keys with Cowpatty and lookup tables, building an iSCSI NAS for VMware, and bypassing local logins with Comboot. All that and more on this episode of Hack 5. This episode of Hack 5 is brought to you by GoDaddy, Squarespace, and the Adobe Flash platform. Adobe Flash provides everything you need to develop cross-platform apps, content, and video. Revision 3 was at Adobe Flash Camp and has the latest on Flash Builder 4, Flash Catalyst, and the open-source Flex 4 framework. Stay tuned for the video at the end of the show to learn more about Adobe's new announcements.
Hello and welcome to Hack 5. My name is Darren Kitchen.
I'm Matt Lestock.
And I'm Shannon Morse.
We've got an excellent show for you guys tonight, and we are playing with all sorts of fun Wi-Fi, SCSI, ESXi, SAN, con booting, Windows hack. It's what?
Yeah. It's pretty much what we've been talking about the last couple weeks, but I think we've kind of found a niche of people want to do more, and want us to do more, and they want us to show them the different options that are actually out there. And my series, and your Wi-Fi hacking and stuff like that, and Shannon with her destroyer of passwords skills. It's You know what I
love though, right? Like your segment in particular, your series on the virtualization, just sprawls like my motorcycle journeys in the backwoods.
Yeah.
Like the little backwards. You're like, I wonder where that goes. Oh, hey, train tracks. Oh, somewhere there. It's like, where the hell is everything going? But I love it because it's all tied together, and that's IT.
Right.
That is like exactly what happens, because that's the beautiful thing about our industry is you come to work one day, everybody in IT knows this. From programmers, systems engineers, you come to the office, whatever, and it's different shit, different day.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing. You get to do something, and then the need is presented to the point where it's frack, I gotta learn this now. And you're like, and then by the end of the learning process, you start to realize that was actually kind of fun.
That's why I think that at least in our industry, experience is worth more than education.
Yes.
And I'm not knocking anybody that's getting a 4-year degree. Do that.
Yeah.
But it really speaks volumes when because you're learning on the job constantly, forever and ever and ever and ever and ever.
I don't have 4 years of college, no technical college, just. We said this before
you get a
on an
degree
episode.
in Technolust, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Work your ass off.
Yeah.
That's all we can say.
Hey, end of season 4 is coming up soon. We need to finalize the dates.
Season 4?
I'm sorry, end of season 5 is coming up. End of our our 4-year anniversary is coming up real soon. We need to, by the next episode, have the details for the Busch Gardens trip. Okay? Busch Gardens meetup. I'm just putting that out there. We'll sit down and finalize the details on that. But August 5th will be our 4-year anniversary of doing the show. So, if you can come out to Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, Virginia, we could have a grand old time. So keep that in mind. August 5th, so I'm thinking like the 8th.
Beer and roller coasters.
Dude, the Hofbräu House. You down to the German area where they got the big, and the
Is that the place we went in?
Yeah.
The Hof?
Yeah.
In Vegas?
Yeah. I don't know about Vegas.
Do you remember?
There's not a lot about Vegas I do remember.
I remember the Vegas
was it the
German
Hofbräu
place.
House?
I have no clue what it was called, but it was awesome.
Right.
Anyway, I think we should just go ahead and get into the beer and meat of it, and let's go ahead and continue on with the beers that we had over in Hoboken and start doing some practical stuff. So last week I was talking about the advancements in Cowpatty.
Right.
It actually turns out that the developer named it Cowpatty not because he was trying to make a mockery of WPA, but that he really thought his code was shit. Yeah. It's actually really good code, I think, So new version 4.5.
Well, everything compared to your code is great.
Yeah. Anyway, so 4.5 is out. Excellent piece of code. This, like we talked about last week, adds some 2 very big new features. First of all, you can verify that the information that you've gathered with your packet captures has what you need to start an attack. Because if you don't have everything, why bother going through an attack just to say no keys found? And second of all, you can crack a WPA connection just using 2 parts of the 4-way handshake. And more details on that on the previous episode, and also awesome links in the show notes So, not going to get into too much detail there. But what's important, what we're going to talk about practically here is this is the proverbial shitty Netgear. And I'm sorry, Netgear. It's not you. It's just that there's a lot of crap routers, and we're just using this shitty Netgear as an example. It could have been a Linksys, and it could have been a D-Link. This is just what we had in the closet. So this little guy is what your grandmother is on the internet with, right?
Here.
I mean, this is grandma router right here.
Yeah.
Right? It's probably your parents' router, right? And you set them up, and you thought you were doing them justice by hooking them up with the WPA, the Wi-Fi protected access, as opposed to that WEP crap. Wired equivalency protocol. Anyway, it's supposed privacy. Anyway, WEP is only supposed to be as good as wired, and well, we know how good that is. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and show you how to audit your own home network, not how to audit your neighbors, but how to make sure that your system is all good using Cowpatty. So I've got a little demo set up. I actually was going to use my Acer Aspire one with the virtual machines and the Backtrack 4 and all that fun stuff. A little bit of problems with virtualization. I'm going to talk to you later about that. And I actually said, Matt, you know what? I'm just going to break out a real machine. So I broke out the EPC, to which you said.
It looks like a virtual machine to me.
Anyway, so EPC and my favorite little, if you haven't picked up an alpha, get this. This is the alpha AWU 036H. This is a beautiful little 500 milliwatt USB Wi-Fi card that does fun stuff. You can get it in monitor mode. You can do a bunch of fun stuff with it.
Yep.
So on with the fun stuff. So I'm here in Backtrack 3, and let's go ahead and get started. First thing we need to do is scout around for an access point, write down a few key things. So first I'm going to go ahead and set airmon ng to start WLAN 0. That is my, my Theros there, my alpha. And you can see I'm in monitor mode. And I'm going to run Kismet with TAC-C, and it's an RT8180 WLAN 0 alpha. Okay, and I did that wrong somehow. Oh, 8180. You know, this EPC keyboard, sometimes
L2
really
type,
crazy.
Mr. DK.
Well, no, the offset, there's supposed to be the tilde next to 1, so they pushed over anyway. So I can see here that here is my Netgear. And what's important here that I'm going to need is obviously the name of the network, which is all caps Netgear. I'm going to need to know the BSS ID of the network, and I'm going to need to know what channel it's on. So we're going to write all those things down. And once we have those written down, let's go ahead and start sniffing. We don't need to associate with the access point anyway, but we can tell our card to listen to channel 11, particularly listening for traffic connected to this Netgear. So I think I already have that right here. So we're going to run arrow-dump ng with TAC-C to set the channel to 11. The BSS ID that we just found, we're going to write the file out to netgear_b, and that's on WLAN 0. So you can already see we have our connection going on. And this is where we talked about earlier last week that if you want to kind of like, for the four-way handshake, or now at least in some cases just two parts of it, you have to get that handshake. And normally to get that, what you'll do is you'll is a couple of ways. We talked about creating a honeypot, or there's also just staking out the access point and waiting for a connection, and that's what I'm doing right now on this laptop. Or if there's already a connection, and you'll see on Backtrack here, I now have a connection. I can see that it is from this address. I can see how many packets are going and whatnot. And if I wanted to, I could go ahead and issue a deauth. So let's go ahead and show you that real quick. It's pretty easy. So using another part of AirPlay, ng, with TAC0 to specify a deauth, we're going to send, I don't know, 30 deauth packets. And we're going to say it's to the BSS ID of 00, the client that we want to deauth to this guy here. So if I can maybe move my window around, of course WLAN 0 as our interface. So I go ahead and run that. And actually what I'm doing is sending a deauth, and I just went ahead and did that. And if you look over in the other window, what you'll notice is you see that WPA handshake, because I used this in promiscuous. So we've gone ahead and sent all these deauth packets. We've actually kicked the machine off of the network, and it has rejoined. And when it did, we saw right over here, it says, hey, there we go, we got the WPA Handshake. So I can actually stop capturing these packets here. I'm going to go ahead and stop that. And now we have a big old packet capture file that we want to go ahead and send over to Cowpatty. Now, Cowpatty does a couple of different things, right? So we can use Cowpatty to take 2 parts of the 4-way handshake sometimes, or 4 parts, and I'll have more information on why that is. And we can either do dictionary with like a word list, or we can do a rainbow table attack. Actually, it's not really, it's a pre-computed time memory trade-off, and it's not technically a rainbow table, it's a lookup table. Point being, there are available from Offensive Security, the people that put together, that do stuff with, it's part of remote exploit, the people that do backtrack. So awesome sauce there, right? They have a huge list of all of these different rainbow tables that you can get for different access points. So remember we talked about that 40 gig all-encompassing?
Right. These are separated out for Linksys, for Netgear, for D-Link. Gotcha.
Exactly. So instead of that 40 gig, I just downloaded a 1.8 gig specifically for Netgear. So I have that going on here, and actually let me see. This will actually be B. Okay, so we're going to run Cowpatty TAC R to our Netgear capture that we just did, TAC D to the netgear.wpa. Those are the rainbow tables we downloaded on my USB drive. And then we have to specify the SSID, so that's Netgear there. And I'll go ahead and run this, and you can see already it is at 100,000 attempts. Now this is this rainbow table contains a ton of different keys, right? But it's able to go through them so much faster. I could show you in comparison. I'm only doing, on this machine, I can only do 33 attempts a second on dictionary attacks. And you can see here, I'm doing tens of thousands a second. So, you know, this is
about 10,000.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and take a look, speed this up, and see if we can get the password. So there we go. The password is password. And that took, well, we searched 32 million passwords at nearly 26,000 a second.
Now this is on an ASUS EPC.
Right, which is a 900 megahertz Celeron underclocked to 600 megahertz.
I would recommend not trying to crack one of these passwords on a EPC.
Especially not when you're trying to do a podcast and get it done before midnight, because it
doesn't work.
No. So, but yeah, I mean, so that really did take like nearly a half hour on this thing. But imagine on a real machine, which would be like 10 times, 100 times faster, or whatever than this. There's a couple things I want to mention, right? So, like I said, you can do dictionary attacks with this. You can do this rainbow table. This rainbow table, let's see, we got to 32 million. I'm sure it kind of could have kept going.
Yeah.
There's a ton of passwords in here, and it's kind of fun to just read it and be
There's
like,
some really weird ones that
pass golf.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's the other thing is it's not just
Yes.
alphanumeric.
Yeah, there was
it's
one,
also got brackets and all this crazy other.
There was a password in there that said, "It is of no consequence." That's a passphrase. It had spaces and everything. Anyway,
yeah.
so my advice to you is WPA passwords. I think it's 8 to 63 or 8 to 64. I think it might be 63. Use them all. Just make a long password.
With special characters.
Yeah. Nobody's going to bother making a 63. Well, okay.
You.
Right now, in 2009, nobody's going to bother doing a 63 character set for the SSI ID of Netgear, because as we said, the hash is based on
Unless you really wanted to
SSI,
piss somebody off, have the default wireless ID and just make a 63 nothing but special characters
I don't know
password.
if there's enough gigabytes or terabytes or petabytes, the hard drives for that. But point being, the other thing to note though is that Cowpatty can be used with standard in and standard out, right? So you can couple it with something like John the Ripper to do a brute force attack. So you could even take your regular dictionary file, run it through John the Ripper that passes it over to Cowpatty to take things like password to change it to P4 $$, you know, like, and do the leadify and all that stuff, and then with different characters and numbers on all that happy stuff. So a couple of things to take a look at if you want to audit the security of your own home wireless network or your corporate wireless network with permission. something to keep in mind. Anyway, when we get back, we are going to be talking about iSCSI? iSCSI with ESXi and a SAN, and it's too many acronyms for me. But at this point, I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Shannon and see what's going on this week in the LAN party.
This month's LAN party is Counter-Strike Source. We're going to be playing over at css.hack5.org on Saturday, June 27th. Make sure to sign up and vote for your favorite game for the next LAN party over at hack5lan.squarespace.com, and make sure to read up on all of the details for Counter-Strike Source. And I'd like to thank our sponsor, Squarespace.
As you know, Squarespace is the quick and easy way to build a beautiful blog or website without ever messing with any code. And over the last 6 months, Squarespace has grown over 100%, and they attribute much of that growth to fans like you. As a special thanks to Revision 3 fans, Squarespace will be giving away an iPhone a day for the next 30 days to lucky fans. All you have to do is include #Squarespace into a tweet to be entered into the drawing. A winner will be chosen at the end of each day and announced on squarespace.com and twitter.com/squarespace.
We'll be back with some iSCSI right after this.
Virtualization, SANs, iSCSI. What is iSCSI? It's the implementation of SCSI hard drives, which you all know all too well, over an IP protocol, TCP. The easiest way to do it for free on the cheap is using something like OpenFiler or FreeNAS. Now today, previously I got questions on how to create virtual machines and set up the iSCSI and stuff like that. So we're going to kill two birds, one stone, and we're going to destroy the universe. Ready? Here we go. First, we're going to go ahead and we're going to launch our VI client, which is Virtual Infrastructure Client. 10.10.055 is our server that is actually running in the corner over there. Root is the username, and hack5 is still the password. We're going to connect up here, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a virtual machine. The virtual machine is going to be FreeNAS. Now, you're kind of wondering why I'm creating a virtual machine inside of FreeNAS. Just because it's easy and I don't have a separate box to install FreeNAS on and I configure ESX. So follow along. We're going to create FreeNAS as a virtual machine, and then we're going to connect the host, which is hosting the FreeNAS virtual machine, to the iSCSI target, which is inside the virtual machine on top of the host. Ready? Let's do this. Here we go. We're going to right-click on our server here, and we're going to create new virtual machine. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a typical, and we're going to click next, and it's going to be FreeNAS. And we're just going to stick it on the second data store. Okay, this is going to be a other 32-bit. You can download 64-bit FreeNAS, but don't really need to. 32-bit's good for now. Moving on is free BSD, and one virtual processor is fine. 256 megs of RAM. Sure, that's fine as well. Now, when you start ESX, it automatically creates a VM network on your primary bound Ethernet interface. You can set up multiple NICs if you have multiple networks, like a DMZ or a RED network, so on and so forth. This is already pre-configured. As we only have one network card in this system, this is the only network interface that we actually have to choose from. So we're going to go ahead and select Next, and we're going to create. I like to run my FreeNAS boxes with two drives, primary for the FreeNAS OS and secondary for the data stores or data or whatever. So we're going to make a 1 gig primary, and we're going to click Finish. And then we're going to expand out the listing of virtual machines, and once it's actually completed, we're going to edit the settings. And we're going to add another hard disk. Okay? We're going to add a hard disk with a size of 250 gigs. And we're going to store it with a virtual machine because we don't need to store it elsewhere. Click Finish, and OK. It's going to go ahead and create the virtual machine hard drive file, the VMDK. And once that's done, we can actually start the machine. And what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to transfer the FreeNAS ISO up to the ESXi server. And you could do that simply by clicking on the data store, create a folder, and upload your image right from your desktop to the the data store. So we've already got the FreeNAS ISO in there, and we are going to right-click on this, edit the settings, and we're going to edit the CD drive with a data store ISO. It's in data store 2 in ISO images and the FreeNAS, and we're going to connect it at power on. Click OK, and let's start some virtual machine loving. I'm going to open the console here so we can actually see what's going on. And here it is beginning the installation of FreeNAS. Now, while it's loading FreeNAS, we're going to have to think about, okay, what's our network and stuff like that, blah, blah, blah. Easiest way is just to use DHCP to start off with. It's going to assign itself an address. And then what we're going to do is we're going to then apply the FreeNAS installer files image itself onto the 1 GB hard disk that we created initially. Okay, so FreeNAS, the live CD, has completed its installation, and now what we need to do is we need to configure the system. It's already got LAN LNC 0, which is our only interface bound to this virtual machine, in there. What we need to do is we now need to set the LAN address. So we're going to hit option 2, and we're going to use DHCP for this. No, I don't care about IPv6, so it's going to initialize the interface. And there we go. So our DHCP server has assigned us an address of 10.10.0.152, and we can now manage the FreeNAS server on port 80. But first, we need to deploy this live image to the disk. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit enter. Oh, that's definitely none of those. And we're going to hit option 9 to install or upgrade to hard disk or flash device. We're going to install the full OS on a hard drive and data and swap partition. We're going to select OK. That is the source of the CD live image. And then there is our 1 GB VMware virtual disk on channel DA0. So we're going to hit OK. 128 for the OS partition. Minimum is 128, so we'll say 256. Okay, do we want to add a swap partition? Doesn't really matter if you do or not because you've got enough memory. We'll say no. Okay, so here we go. FreeNAS is now installed on DA-S1. You can now remove the CD and reboot the PC. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up here, Control and Alt, VM, Edit Settings. We're going to disconnect and make sure that's okay, and click OK. And we can exit now. Okay, so just for good measure, we're going to make sure that the virtual machine actually starts with that image that we've just installed. Select yes to reboot the system, and now we're going to go ahead and reboot. Okay, so we're rebooted, and unfortunately it didn't get a DHCP address, so we'll go ahead and set the LAN interface again. We'll select yes for DHCP, no. Initialize the interface once again, and then from here, once the device is initialized, we can go to our web browser and we can actually start to set up the iSCSI device so that we connect ESX to the iSCSI drive. Now, obviously, you're not going to use this in a production environment simply because there's absolutely no reason to. Why would you create an iSCSI target on top of your data store? Nobody would. But for the sake of showing you how to do it, we're going to show you here. So we're going to Control-Alt out of this. This is pretty much done. We don't need to use this console anymore. 10.10.0.152. So let's go here. And I believe it's admin and password of FreeNAS. All right, so here we go. The nice, pretty interface of FreeNAS. It's a lot better than it has looked in the last couple versions, so let's go ahead and dive in. First, what we need to do is we need to go ahead and add a disk. The disk itself is going to be the 250 gig, we'll call it our iSCSI disk. Click Add, Apply Changes. Okay, let's come over here to Services. On the iSCSI target, we need to add an extent. The extent itself is what VMware is going to see. And it's going to be a device because we're going to bind it right to the device, which is DA1 iSCSI disk. Click Add, Apply Changes. And now we need to add the actual iSCSI target. Now this iSCSI target is going to be what accepts the request from VMware ESXi to say, hey, I'm over here, I have extents. Good stuff. So we're going to make it read-writable. It's going to be extent 0, authorized network 10.10.0.0/24, comment, iSCSI disk. See where we're going? Click add, click apply. Let's go over here to enable, come down here, save and restart. Okay, so now that's done. Now if we did everything correctly, we can go back over to ESXi and select our host, come over here to configuration and to storage adapters. What we need to do is we need to select the iSCSI software adapter because we don't have a hardware HBA. Click properties, configure, enable it, select OK. There is no CHAP authentication on our iSCSI target, so we don't have to worry about authentication or anything like that, simply because we're not running, we'll call this a separate network. Dynamic discovery is what we're going to do. Click add, 10.10.0.152. Default port is 3260. We're good with that. Select OK. Close, and yes, we want to rescan. So here we go. We've rescanned the iSCSI HBA correctly, and we can here now see a VM HBA 33 with a capacity of 250 gigs. Now, if we come over here to, not that one yet, we need to click storage, and we actually need to create a VMFS system on this, this new data store that we've found. So we're going to click Add Storage, Disk LUN, because iSCSI appears to the system as just another physically connected device. Disk LUN, click Next, and boom, there is our 250 gig capacity. There's your SAN identifier. There's the actual device that VMware sees. Click Next. Click Next as the hard disk is blank. And we're going to call this FreeNAS iSCSI 1. Click Next. Now, this is important. A lot of people have been bitten by this in the past, and you need to capacity plan before you actually continue on this step. The maximum file size that you're going to be able to have on a specific data store. 2 terabyte file sizes are obviously for people with very large databases in a single file. We had a client with, a 1.5 terabyte database dump that they gave us in a single file, and we had to shuffle everything around so that we could reformat our LUN to accept a file that big. Don't get bit in the ass and accidentally undersize your block sizes. So we're going to select 256 gigs simply because that's how big our LUN is. We're going to maximize capacity, click Next, and click Finish. Now what it's going to do down here is create the VMFS data store. So right now it's actually formatting that iSCSI LUN, and what it's going to do is allow us to then create a virtual machine just as if we had another connected, direct attached storage media, even though it's actually on the other side of the data center traveling through our TCP network. So while this is in progress, what we can actually do is make sure, and there it is. So it just showed up in our storage list, and we can come over here, right click, new virtual machine, typical. I'm just going to fly through this real quick, and here we now see that the FreeNAS iSCSI target with a capacity of 256 gigs is now in our available data store list. Click Next, yes, next, 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 finish. And let's see if it actually creates the virtual machine. Because it formatted it, it should be okay. And there we go. So now if we come over here and go to Summary, we now see in the data store that we've got 8 gigs taken up by our newly created virtual machine. So once again, let's go and do an overview. Obviously, you're not going to have FreeNAS with an iSCSI target under the host that you're going to end up connecting to. Why is this good? Well, FreeNAS is really easy to set up, obviously. You can install it on a machine that you have from 6 years ago. As long as you have a big enough case for the number of drives and you can do software RAID, or if you have, a hardware device that's on the FreeNAS compatibility list, you can do hardware RAID. It really is the cheapest of the cheap way to deploy an iSCSI target in an enterprise-wide environment. Now, when I say enterprise, obviously, multi-million-dollar companies probably aren't going to be using ESXi and FreeNAS. But for the sake of learning, it's a great tool that will allow you to, know the steps that you need to create extents, targets, how to configure them, deploy them. This is all research that you can do on your own, learning from anywhere here or reading online. So with that, I will leave you to noodle on how you're going to take your ESX implementations to the next step. I would really like your comments. If you guys have fiddled with ESXi or iSCSI or any of the other things that we've been talking about here, if you have concerns. But what I'd really like to know is what you've done since we've started this series and what you actually want us to do to help you guys out if you have any questions. Hit me up, matt@hack5.org. I haven't responded to all the emails, but I promise I will get to them eventually. Right now, we're going to take a break, and Shannon is going to show us how ridiculously easy it is to bypass somebody's Windows password without them ever knowing.
Last week we had a photo caption contest. This was the photo. And the winner of that caption contest was Sparta with the caption, "Good taste, I has it." Good job, Sparta. We really enjoyed that one, and we are going to be sending you your choice of Hack5 swag from the Hack Shop. This week's trivia is, what two German researchers discovered in 2008 a flaw in WPA-TKIP that can decrypt short packets such as ARP messages? If you feel like trying out for this trivia, go over to hack5.org/trivia and enter for your chance to win some sweet swag this week. And last but not least, I would like to thank our sponsor, GoDaddy. Starting at less than $5 a month, web hosting from GoDaddy.com includes 99.9% uptime, 24/7 support, and free access to GoDaddy Hosting Connection, which is the place to quickly install over 50 free applications like WordPress, Joomla, Drupal, OSCommerce, and more. Also, be sure to check out revision3.com/GoDaddy for all of Hack5's coupons and deals. Next up, we're going to take a break, and after that, I'm going to show you how to bypass some Windows security by using Conboot.
Here we go, here we go, here we go, here we go, here we go.
Alright, so that about wraps up this episode of Hack5, but I have a nifty little treat for you guys. Okay, so Jason, he brought his laptop. Jason Applebaum's, he's down
Yeah, I remember
visiting
him
us.
from the Christmas and New Year's episodes.
I decided that I was going to hack his laptop.
With your KRAD Ultra Eliteness?
Yes. So I don't know his password right now. I get the usual error code.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to go ahead and show you this because it's way cool. Shut down, bitch.
She totally just killed the machine.
I did. So VJ loved us right now, and it actually showed us what was going on the television screen for you guys. Mm-hmm. I'd be able to show you that this thing called Conboot is booting up right now, right off of a CD. It's just a little ISO file that you download off the internet.
I like them. And you burn to a CD, I assume. It's Cryptoslogic?
Cryptoslogic, yes. It's by Piotr Banya.
All right.
.com. I'm not really sure how you say that, but those are the people that created it. It's called Conboot.
Conboot.
It's really, really simple. All it does is it grabs the Windows kernel and changes it up a little bit, so you don't even have to know a person's Windows password. You basically just get to the Windows password screen where it asks for the username and PW, and you press enter and you get in. And then you can mess around as long as you want, and then you just log out, take out your CD, and nobody ever knows.
So basically what you're saying
So
is...
it's way better than Offcrack. You showed that a while ago.
Yes.
Using the
Remember
rainbow
Offcrack,
tables.
like you had to use a rainbow table, and if it wasn't a very easy password, you probably wouldn't get it, or it would take a really, really long time if you had a huge rainbow table, and hopefully you did. Mm-hmm. With this, you don't even need that. You just press enter a couple of times. You don't even need the password.
But the nice thing about this is, I mean, without going through that or one of the other utilities where it changes the password.
Right. I have on numerous occasions, legitimately at the office, say like a user leaves the company, right? Repurpose the laptop. They don't give us the, they're being a bitch, whatever.
Right.
You use the NT offline password and registry editor, I think is what it's called.
Well, there's a bunch of them that will, I mean, you don't have to do that one, but there's a bunch of them that you just boot and it, resets the password, but it resets the password for good.
Right.
So
this is just a temporary fix because you're just booting off the CD.
Exactly.
So we've rebooted now.
We've rebooted. We're back to the username and password screen. XP Professional. Good. No Vista. I love you. Just press enter. Okay.
That was too easy.
Jason, what's your password?
It doesn't
Because
matter.
apparently it doesn't matter, because I can obviously log into your computer
That
anyway.
is hardcore.
Pretty hot. And you know what?
Love it.
I gotta give you
It's
props.
easy.
When you first mentioned this to me, I was like, oh, that sounds like the NT-password boot blah, blah, blah thing.
Yeah.
I asked Movix about it. I'm like, hey, have you played with it? He's like, yeah, I tried it on 3 different machines and I can't get it working.
I tried it on 2 different machines, and it worked on 2 different machines.
Yes. And I hear that there's a version that maybe works in Linux 2.6.
Yes, there is also another version just for Linux, and that one does pretty much the exact same things. Changes up the kernel.
We're going to have to play with that. I got to say, though, there are ways to protect yourself from
There
this.
are ways to protect yourself. You can obviously put on a BIOS password.
Okay, we could also do a follow-up
do
to
that.
that, showing ways
Yeah.
around that.
And you could also use something as simple as TrueCrypt and just TrueCrypt your entire hard drive. And they would not be able to see your stuff.
So you're coming back next week to show us how to
So
TrueCrypt
I
our entire hard
definitely
drive?
could come back next week and tell you about that. Another thing I want to mention is if you are deciding to do this, you can't go in and change somebody's password. So you can't change that. So no matter what, once you log off, they won't know you're there
So
unless
it's
they
basically
know
for
registry
I
stuff.
mean, you know, for people who, or companies who, you know, shelve machines for a certain period of time
Yeah.
before, or, you know, keep something for government purposes.
Right.
Forgot the password, but we still have the machine. It's just sitting there for, you know, retention purposes.
Right. This would be
We
a
need
good
to
tool
get in
for
there.
that.
Get in
This would
there,
be a
change
very
something,
good
get a
tool for that.
file. There's a setting, an act, goldmine,
No
whatever.
worry about, you know, crashing the entire drive. It just kind of, that's
Yeah.
it.
If Darren leaves the household and he wants me to get on his computer and he has like
There
a
you go, it's a
40,000
rescue
million
CD.
characters.
A rescue CD. Listen, like we
I could
said
get
at
on
the
there
A
with
block
this.
at the top of the show, as always, with all of this stuff, we're encouraging you to totally go to your high school and own them. No, wait, did I get that wrong?
Yes.
It's the other way around.
Use it for home and educational purposes only.
Yes.
That's what I meant to say.
Don't
Yeah.
bust into Paul's, you know, Windows 7
Oh.
computer so you can find his.
Yeah, don't
info.
find yourself with an F5 felony on your ass because you decided to have a lot of fun with Kin Enable on your university's network, and then you're emailing Darren saying, hey, I'm getting hit with the class 5 felony because I did something stupid and I didn't change my, or spoof my MAC address. We'll have to do a segment on
Hey, that's
spoofing
a
your
little
MAC address.
scary.
Point being, don't do stupid stuff.
So I'm going to
Play
get
with
my
your own network.
CD
Do
outta
stupid
here.
stuff to your own systems.
Lovely
Yeah.
CD.
And then get paid a lot of money to do it to other people's when they pay you to.
There you go.
All right. Well, with all of that said, I think this was an excellent, long-winded, awesome episode of technical goodness.
Which I'm
It
sure we're
was.
going to get
I
yelled
agree.
at for.
Jim's going to be like, guys, what did it
was
say?
too long.
15-minute episodes. Have you ever done a 15? No.
I don't see 15 in my shoes.
All right. Sorry. Anyway.
If you enjoyed what you saw today, definitely hit us up over at feedback@hack5.org.
And also remember, we've got new stuff coming out at the store, so head on over to hack5.org/hackshop.
Is everything else we can do?
Yes.
All right. So let's hack chop our way out of here.
Bitchin'.
And as always, we are reminding you to trust your technolust. See ya.
All right. Well, I'll do throws. I'll recycle throws. I'll recycle throws.
I like it.
All right. Got it. I didn't tweet this, and I'm not going to. Oh no, he's recording me. It's going to be a blooper. I'm going to stop.
I know.
The word that I would describe today as is game-changing.
What we're working on and what's happened with Flash is it's really evolved as a technology from being original animation player on the web to really growing into a full platform now.
And we have 3 main themes for this release. Basically, most people start an application either thinking about the design or thinking about the data, so we've really tried to enable that in Flash Builder 4.
The power lived in the wrong hands when it came to designing a really rich internet application. The designer would hand off a static comp to a developer and then lose all control over the actual final look and feel of an application.
Flash Builder 4, I think, really enables a much better workflow between designers and developers.
What this release does is it really puts that power back in the designer's hands to own the visual appearance all the way into building an actual Flex application.
they can build out whatever design they envision. They can import that into Flash Builder. You can add all of your data connectivity and really keep your design the way the designer intended it.
I'm a developer, so Flash Builder is home for me. The features that are most important to me are almost silly. You know, there are things like the package view and the navigator. There are things that help me be more efficient.
So all of the types of like growing pains we go through with the new designer or a new project where we're sort of fleshing out what it's going to look like, how it's going to work, having some tools that sort of support and facilitate good communication is pretty awesome. So
all these tools are going to save me big time, like time and effort, less code, much easier to reduce the complexity of workflow.
And then you write all of your business logic in Flash Builder and deploy a great application that's just sort of going to revolutionize the kinds of expressive, exciting apps that you can build.